I'm in a mixed marriage, and I ended up marrying out of the faith, and sort of how did this all happen? Well, last time when I was here, I talked to you about my dating life, which was kind of weird, and I held back on you because there was one part I didn't really tell you about. I was engaged at one point before I got married to somebody else, and it was a rabbi. Suffice it to say, almost 30 years later, there is still this poster of me in the office at that synagogue that says, "If you see this man, recircumcise him." Now, because I couldn't get any synagogue in Arizona to perform a wedding if I married a Jew, I went to the Methodist Church. My long-suffering wife, Nancy, had to put up with iconoclasm from me, this puny agnostic brain that has no filter. And what happens is I just say anything that comes into my head. So, like her son, when he's 13, we're getting this new mailbox, and it's leaning up against the garage, one of those posts. And he says to me, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a crucifix for a one-armed man." This did not go well with Nancy. And then she took me to her church, thinking like I'm some rube who's never been to a church. And she says to me, "Don't worry about it. It's not going to be that bad, Todd. We don't even have Jesus up on the cross." And I look at her and I say, "Nothing worries a Jew more than Jesus down from the cross and you're ready for another Jew." Also, like her parents are the salt of the earth. I mean, small town Indiana, and they moved to Arizona. And her mom, for the first Easter I'm going to go to at their house, says to me, she really wants to make this so I'm comfortable and special, and can she get anything special for me? I tell this poor woman to go out and find me a kosher ham. Now, how do I understand that she's not going to get the joke? Okay? That was not an easy Easter to be in. We go back to Nancy's hometown in southern Indiana, right on the Kentucky border. She's going to take me back there to meet her high school buddies for the 30th reunion at the Moose Lodge, okay? Getting the idea. And they have contests at this event for most time served. They have most great-grandchildren and most intergenerational family marriages. And they heard I was coming. Like, apparently Nancy had kind of explained this to some of her friends, and they had a booth at this event, Meet the Jew. Before I went, I said to Nancy, should I rent a tux? What's this going to be like? She said, "Don't worry about it. It's the home of the clan. Go get yourself a percale sheet. It'll be perfect for the bonfire." We have kids, two children. I have a stepson and a daughter. And they're out of the house now, but not far from the wallet. You all feel my pain. So we commune over our dogs, and we have 3 dogs, okay? They are Ruth, Bader, and Ginsburg. That's too good a joke. They really are. We have Alfie, who's a male Shih Tzu, and we have Mitty, who's a female Border Terrier, and we have Oliver Wendell Holmes. And Oliver is a transsexual 100-pound Great Pyrenees. He gets upset if we talk to him about that because he thinks he's genderqueer. Okay? And Jonathan and I were on the same wavelength apparently when we were writing our jokes. Any of you have a Shih Tzu?
I've had.
You've had them. So you know that breed is inappropriately named. They are stubborn as can be. They should be named Shits here, Shits there, Shits anywhere but outside. Okay. And only Shits on an Oriental rug. Jamie Zimron came to visit us, and she thought she'd help this dog. So she's trying to teach the Shih Tzu how to do Aikido, right? To protect itself from the coyotes that come into our yard. Okay. Alfie was having none of this. He was so pissed off, he went and shit on her golf bag. Oliver is the great one. This 100-pound Great Pyrenees who goes to work with me every day. And there's this lesson I learned from Oliver. If you're a divorce lawyer like I am, and you have a 100-pound Great Pyrenees who stands at exactly crotch height and who uses his nose as a battering ram all the time, he's not the best greeter for the women divorce clients in the Me Too era. We're on the second floor where we still, by the way, have our drive-up window. And Oliver has figured out how to escape our office all the time because he opens doors. And he goes down to the sandwich shop on the first floor and he orders stuff. And he figured out how to use the elevator to do it, and which button to push. And now we've got this problem because the dentist's office downstairs has a golden retriever who has been also going into the sandwich shop and forging Oliver's paw. So I have this client who is really enamored with Oliver. And this client came in one day and says to me, you know, you're taking my husband's deposition next week. And how about if I bring in a bunch of his old underwear and I train Oliver to his scent, and maybe Oliver could attack my husband, okay? So I'm thinking about this, and this creates a horrible ethical dilemma for a lawyer, right? Now, for all the lawyers and the judge, this is the CLE portion of the program. You get credit for this. It's free. What do I do about this ethical dilemma? And finally, I went back to her after thinking about this for a long time, and I said to her, you know, this really isn't covered by your retainer agreement with our firm. I'm going to have to charge you more. So, by the way, you're going to see me skipping pages because Diane edited this while she was driving. Down the Davern Hill.
Some of the best driving work I've ever done.
So, I have these clients who are the anti-vaxxers, right? So, you know, what do you do about them? They immediately come in and they want to yell at you that their spouse, as soon as the spouse filed the divorce action, took the kids in and got them vaccinated. And I have to kind of say to them, you know, maybe we'll talk to the judge about something else. Like, maybe we'll talk, I'm going to have a better time selling your drug problems, your domestic violence, and your drinking than the vaxxer.
Yeah.
I've been starting to think about aging and retirement finally, and we all talked about that today. And I came home from the last reunion and told Nancy about the session on ethical wills. Okay, that happened here. A wonderful session. I didn't attend it, but I heard all about it. But it was a great concept, and Nancy said that she'd settle for us doing any form of estate planning. Just anything would do at this point. So off we go to the lawyer. God, I hate paying them. We come home with a trust, a will, a living will, and one of those medical powers of attorney. You know, so that she can make decisions for me when I'm totally out of it, which probably won't be far off. And 2 days later, I come home, and I found all of the electrical cords pulled out of the sockets. 37 of them, okay? And I said to Nancy, what is this all about? She said, I'm practicing.
Bad, very bad, very bad.
And I do have a plan for my funeral, by the way, which we talked about today also. And I'm having a Viking funeral. I am having, definitely being cremated. Nancy used to put me on a pool float out in the back, and with gas, you know, the whole gasoline thing. And we're doing it as a fundraiser, but all of you can have coupons. The NoFTY people come in free. And there is no end of people who are willing to shoot flaming arrows into the body of a divorce lawyer. Send you off like you're going down the Ganges. I'm getting older and I've been worried about dementia. Dementia runs in my family. And I've talked to many of you, and lots of us have had these issues with our parents or grandparents. And you learn patience, and you learn to go with the flow, and you reject all logic in any form of communication. You kind of, whatever they're going with, you do that. next year, first of all, we'll, rather than talking about bringing our spouses to this, we can all have a discussion about bringing our caregivers. And then my mother had very serious Alzheimer's, as did all of her full brothers. And she became fixated on two things. One of them was where she lived. She was living at home, and my brother was taking care of her in her own home in Phoenix. And anytime you'd come visit my mother, you'd say at the end of the visit, well, I'm going to go now. And my mother would say, well, I'm going to go home also in a few minutes. And you know, we would go with the flow with that. But the other fixation, which was her second and just absolute obsession, was she was convinced that there was this little man wearing a hat who was coming out of her, popping up in her toilet. Well, okay, while she was sitting on it.
Okay.
And we went with the flow. We told her it was the rabbi visiting.